Title: The Empty Chair of Fear. The house had always been a refuge, a place where the Mendoza family could leave behind the stress of daily life and simply be a family. But that night, dinner became something more, something sinister. It all began with a simple creak. Carlos, the father, attributed it to the old building settling. Elena, the mother, thought it was the wind slipping through a crack. Sophia, the teenage daughter, simply ignored the sound, absorbed in her phone. But then, another chair moved. And another. They were seated around the large mahogany dining table, a piece of furniture that had belonged to the family for generations. The light from the crystal chandelier cast dancing shadows on the walls, and the aroma of freshly baked lasagna filled the air. A cozy atmosphere, until the chairs began to dance. "Is anyone there?" Carlos asked, his voice tinged with forced disbelief. Elena gave him a worried look, while Sophia looked up from her phone, frowning. "Dad, stop joking," Sophia said, but her voice trembled slightly. Then, one of the chairs slid backward, as if someone had abruptly stood up. But there was no one there. Silence seized the dining room, a heavy and oppressive silence, broken only by the crackling of the candles. I think we should leave," Elena whispered, her eyes wide. Carlos tried to maintain his composure, but fear was already sinking deep inside him. "Don't be ridiculous, Elena. It must be a draft." He got up and closed the windows, making sure they were securely latched. But the movement persisted. Chairs shifting, rocking, and creaking, as if possessed by an invisible force. Paranoia began to bloom in the minds of each of the Mendozas. They looked at each other, suspicious, wondering if one of them was playing a cruel joke. But deep down, they knew it wasn't. "It's in the house!" Sophia exclaimed, her voice cracking with panic. She got up from the table and ran towards the door, but found it locked. She tried to open it, but the bolt wouldn't budge. Carlos and Elena joined her, struggling with the handle, but the door remained sealed. Panic overwhelmed them completely. They were trapped, at the mercy of an invisible presence that seemed to feed on their fear. The chairs began to move more violently, colliding with each other and against the walls. One of them rose into the air and crashed into the chandelier, sending a rain of broken glass over the table. The light went out, plunging the dining room into near total darkness. Screams of terror filled the room. The Mendozas stumbled blindly, searching for an exit, but only found obstacles in their path. Fear paralyzed them, made them vulnerable. Suddenly, a voice whispered in the darkness. A guttural and cold voice, that seemed to come from everywhere at once. "I'm hungry," the voice said. The Mendozas huddled together, trembling with terror. They knew they were not alone, that something was stalking them, in the darkness, something that fed on their fear and their desperation. Carlos, driven by an instinct to protect, stood between his family and the darkness. "Who are you? What do you want from us?" he shouted, his voice trembling. The voice responded with a chilling laugh. "I want your fear. I want your desperation. I want your souls." A shadow materialized in the center of the dining room, an amorphous and dark figure that seemed to absorb the light around it. The Mendozas felt an intense cold, a cold that chilled their bones and paralyzed their hearts. The figure lunged at them, and the Mendozas screamed with all their might. The next morning, the house was silent. Sunlight streamed through the windows, illuminating the shattered dining room. The chairs lay scattered on the floor, covered in dust and broken glass. The mahogany table was overturned, and the lasagna, now cold and rancid, was spread across the floor. There was no sign of the Mendozas. Only the empty chair at the head of the table, as if waiting for its next guest. A new couple moved into the house the following month. Drawn by the affordable price and spectacular garden views, they ignored the neighbors' warnings about the guests that haunted the house. On their first night in the house, while dining by candlelight in the same dining room, one of the chairs moved. The newlyweds exchanged a nervous glance and continued eating, trying to ignore the sound. But then, another chair moved. And another. The empty chair of fear had found them. The Mendoza family was gone, but the being that fed on their paranoia was still waiting, now living in the crumbling house, waiting for the next family or the next unsuspecting person to cross its path. The house laid empty for years after the couple fled, falling into ruin before a developer finally tore it down. Allegedly, during construction of the new building, workers often complained of their tools disappearing or moving. Some reported seeing figures in the corner of their eye. The new building was completed and sold in full, but the lot soon became one with an unusually high property turnover rate. The legend of the invisible dinner guest has become a tale the locals use to scare each other. Some say the tenant now lives in an old chair in the original house, others believe it moved somewhere into the new building. All agree that no matter where it goes, it's still sitting at the table, waiting to be served.